Okay, guys, what I've done is I've gone through and looked at some skills that I wish my AGS2 kids this year would have had coming into class, and we're going to be targeting some of those as we move towards the end of the year. So the one that I want to focus on today is simplifying radicals. So work through these and also do the exponents that are attached to it. You can do it in either order. It might be easiest to do the exponents last and do this while it's fresh in your head after we talk about it. But basically what we're doing in this first part here on B is we're matching letters to numbers. So I find it easiest to start with what's written on the number. So the square root of 108, and then we are going to simplify that into one of these that are up here. So in order to do that, you need to basically factor it and you break it down. So you need to find two things that multiply together to get 108, where one of them has a perfect square. So I start thinking about things that multiply to 108. The first one that I might think of is 54, don't write this down because it's wrong, times 2. 54 times 2 multiplies to 108, but neither one of them has a perfect square. And you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. So, the more I think about it, I know that 4 has a perfect square, so I think, okay, well 4 times what number would be 108, and that would be 27, because 4 times 27 is 108. And then from here, I would take it to, okay, well, what is the square root of 4? And I know that that's 2. So I write 2 on the outside times the square root of 27. Now, this is still not broken down. It's not completely done until you have all the perfect squares out of this number. And I know 27 still has a perfect square in it, because 9 times 3 is 27, and 9 has a perfect square. So I would take this one down to 9 times 3, and I know that the square root of 9 is 3, and I take that 3 and I multiply it by this 2, and 3 times 2 is 6, times the square root of 3. So I look up here and I find G, 6 times the square root of 3. So 1 matches up with G. Hopefully that made sense. Now looking back at this, I could have done it in one step. Now that I have the answer, I see that the one-step answer was 36 times 3, which would have gotten me straight to the end answer. But I kind of like the way that that worked out, because now you guys understand that you actually have to have a number under here, under the radical, that doesn't have a perfect square inside of it. Okay, let's try 2 just for the heck of it. So 2, start thinking of two numbers that multiply together to get 72, where one has a perfect square. And then we're going to match that up with one of the letters. So that would be 36 times 2. And this one's quite a bit easier because we automatically get 2. The square root of 36 is 6. And 6 times the square root of 2 is F. So I know that I found that one right there. That's going to get you to cruise through most of these problems. The only time that I think that we could start running into some issues is, here's a new concept right here on 14. So on 14, I have the square root of 3 times the square root of 12. And when we do this, we are allowed to multiply together to get the square root of 36, which is equal to 6. Yes, that's a rule, and that you are allowed to do that. 17, the square root of 16 over 25. 4/5. So the rule is, if you can do the perfect square, do the perfect square, like I can see on 23. where I have 10 times the square root of 20 over 64. Okay, what has a perfect square, 20 or 64? I know 64 does, so that is 8, and I would have to bring it to the outside and multiply it by 10. And I'd have 80 times the square root of 20. And if I were to put that on a test or something, I'd miss half because 20 is not broken down. 20 has got to break down to 4 times 5, and the square root of 4 is 2. And then I multiply 80 by 2, and I have 160 times the square root of 5. So just kind of play around with these, and wherever you see a perfect square like that, and here, and here, and here, automatically take it, because that starts the simplification process. So work your way through these, do the exponents today, and check your answers as always with me as you start to finish up some problems. And you can see how whiteboards can also be very helpful with this. Thank you.